So, Lori Loughlin still does not have her Hallmark deal back. That's the news this week. That's never coming back. How are they going to fill that programming? That's a crater like 9,000 hours of programming a year that they're going to have to fill.
And if I'm not mistaken, isn't she in the cast of the reboot of the Full House series?
Yeah, that's done
on
too.
Netflix or something.
That's done too.
That's gone.
That's done too. That's done too.
Man, yeah. The thing of it is, when these people when they go down, they take down entire sort of ecosystems with them. Bill Cosby did it, took out an entire ecosystem.
I know. Well, that's how what's his name wound up working at Trader Joe's.
Yeah. From played the son-in-law. Yeah.
But he's got a career again.
Yeah, thank God for Tyler Perry.
Yeah. So it's it's a thing that is very upsetting because so many of these people, and this goes to the Harvey Weinstein scandal as well, Kevin Spacey, Bryan Singer. I mean, all of these things you can go right down the line. There's a selfishness sometimes, and to be an artist requires a certain degree of selfishness. You do have to have a vision, and you do have to be determined to fulfill your vision, and I think people understand that. But at the same time, when you work in Hollywood, image is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that brand that you are trying to buy for your kids and for you, but through the college, if your brand becomes tarnished, you're taking others down.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're let's say you're just some grip or a gaffer or somebody who's working on a Hallmark movie, on a Hallmark series, and now that's been canned because of Lori Loughlin, you can't pay your mortgage next month.
Yeah, you just
that
wiped
really
a
sucks.
whole bunch of people out of work. I don't know.
It's upsetting. I mean, the lesson of this is when other people depend on you, behave.
Yeah. Particularly because you've already made it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that bugs me about it. You didn't need any of this. You're already there. Everybody loves you.
Yeah.
But yet just a little bit more, a little bit more. All you had to do was behave.
I mean, crazy thing was, when I was applying to colleges, and that was a whole different era before that became so cutthroat and so crazy, and I mean for you as well, I'm going to assume, it wasn't something that you didn't wring your hands over the brand of it. Like, oh my gosh, what if I have to go to community college for a year or two? It's like, well, then you do. Then you do.
I did.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people do. Most people do. I mean, I applied to 2 colleges, and I wanted to get into one. I wanted to get into UCLA because I wanted to stay in town and try to get into the film school. And I was fortunate enough. I got in. That was before their standards were raised. But I didn't have a 4.0.
Yeah.
I had good grades, but I didn't have a 4.0. I didn't have a 4.2. You couldn't get a 4.2 back then.
Yeah.
And the first time I applied to film school, I didn't get in. So I worked harder to get in the next time. That's middle. You do 2 years, and then you hope you can apply to film school. And I thought, well, if I don't get accepted, then I'll pick another major, or I'll go to a different school. I'll transfer somewhere or something. I mean, good friend of ours had a really touching Facebook post. She was accepted to SC, couldn't afford it, so she went to CSUN. And good on her. She's great and she's smart and got a great film education as well. And I just don't. It's become all too. It's too much of that status competition now.
Yeah.
And schools shouldn't be part of that.
To be honest, I'll take it. I'll even take it up a notch.
Yeah.
My father didn't go to college at all. I never knew anybody more brilliant than my father.
Yeah.
My father could do just about anything.
My mother didn't go to college. My mother didn't finish high school. World War II disrupted that.
You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, I did not, and not just hardworking, but I mean brilliant. My father read encyclopedias. He would just sit there with the E's, and he would just. My father could build a car from the ground up. My father was an electrician. I mean, it's just so sometimes I think we depend too much on the notion of this sort of formal education.
Yeah.
And we do not think about just an education.
My sister-in-law was just in town, who lives in Norway, and who was saying all of that, which is exactly what my mother used to say, because in Europe there are trade schools.
Trade schools,
and
yeah.
they are respected. Nobody says, "Oh, you went to DeVry?
Yeah.
You went to Brighton?"
Yeah.
Like they don't sneer at that. It's like, no, that's a legitimate thing that you do. If you go to college, you want to be a lawyer. That's one thing. If you want to be a gemologist,
yes, another thing.
If you want to be a cobbler,
if you
that
want
is totally
to,
legit.
there is nothing more important in the land of Bavaria than a BMW mechanic. You want to know who makes money? BMW mechanics, Mercedes mechanics.
We'll
make
leave this
money.
here. We'll leave this here and then move on to DVDs. But some years ago, we were in London. Do you know who makes the highest paid occupation in London today? Plumber.
Yeah, you know,
because 200-year-old pipes are bursting.
Yeah.
And this was an attorney's wife that was telling me this, saying plumbers make more than lawyers in London.
Yeah.
They make more than stockbrokers.
And well, they should, damn
because they are fixing things that haven't been fixed in like a couple hundred years.
Yeah, and well, they should, and well, they should. And by the way, anyway, as you say, move on to DVDs. It's a thing.
It's a thing. So the bottom line for celebrities is, look, if you're a celebrity, if you are so fortunate as to become successful in this business, people depend on you. People depend on you. If a movie is getting made because of you, behave.
Yeah.
Because now there are hundreds of people, not just working on the movie, but down the line who will be working on the marketing of the movie, the selling of the movie in all kinds of other countries. There is now, like you said, an entire ecosystem of people who are depending on you to behave.
Yeah. And there are people who do it correctly, by the way. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks literally talks about it. Tom Hanks literally talks about it. He understands that it's just not about Tom Hanks.
People are depending on you.
Lots and lots of people working in companies, all kinds of, they're depending on me to make decisions and to do things and to be an acceptable person.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks knows how to do it. Steven Spielberg knows how to do it. The old school people, they know how to do it.
All right. Well, with that, we're now going to talk about a guy who lives underwater.
Aquaman.
No, I was going to say not SpongeBob SquarePants. Although I would love to see SpongeBob make a cameo in an Aquaman movie. Wouldn't that be great?
An Aquaman movie would be better with SpongeBob. I hated this movie. It's just a big dumbass movie. That opening sequence was kind of cool with Nicole Kidman.
There's all kinds of cool stuff in it.
Yeah,
individually cool things, but it. I will say this, and I'll let you say your say. But there continues to be an ongoing problem with the entire DC universe, and Marvel has Kevin Feige, and Kevin is the godfather of that whole thing. He is the little Walt Disney of all things Marvel. And if you're not familiar with his career, he started as like a producer's assistant, and he went from being basically like a low-level, up-and-coming producer to running the single most important brand other than Disney itself in the Disney empire almost overnight. It took about 1.5 years for him to scale that. And it was because they correctly saw this guy knows Marvel.
Yeah.
He knows Marvel, and this guy lives it. He's a nerd. All those comic books he read as a kid, now it pays off. And that's what every guy dreams of.
Yeah.
Every nerd dreams of that, And there is no comparable person in the DC world who sort of understands that. And
over here they got a bunch of MBAs and lawyers running the companies.
And they can't figure it out. And they keep thinking, well, we'll hire some good directors, and it's missing an overarching vision.
Yeah.
It's missing that person in that same position to say, look, I know DC. Here's what we're going to do. This is our 15-year plan for DC properties.
Yeah.
We're going to do this and that and the other thing. We're going to tie this story into that one. We're going to take this. And, they kind of were on that path with Nolan, but Nolan didn't want to be that guy. He's got other stories he wants to tell.
Yeah, he didn't want to do Batmans for the rest of his life.
No.
But you're absolutely right. Thus, you get these sort of standalone movies that are, Wonder Woman, good movie. You enjoyed Wonder Woman. So you have that, and moments in this movie, but a big sort of idea about what's going on, Superman, Batman, all that kind of stuff. No, it just isn't there. Anyway, this movie really just bugged the hell out of me, except for Jason Momoa, and thoroughly enjoyed him.
He's great, and look, they have This made a ton of money, so
Yeah.
obviously people want to see Aquaman, and he is incredibly charismatic, and he's the right casting. You know, it was a smart move. I will say that it was a smart move to move away from the blonde Aryan Aquaman of the old comic books, and to make him something more Polynesian, more ethnic, something more that we associate with people of the sea, right? Yeah, that was a smart move. And look, Momoa is charismatic. He has the best body of anybody who has ever played a superhero. He doesn't need any suit enhancement. It's all
thing
there.
that I love about him is he just you could say Hemsworth.
Yeah,
is they just sort of lean into it.
Yeah,
they just like, yes, give me the stupid trident, and I'll just lean into it.
I'll be honest. I want to see an Aquaman and Thor movie. I realize that's a DC Marvel crossover we will never get, but I kind of want to see that. I kind of do. I want to. I really want to compare the two bodies. Is what I want to do.
What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
How do you do with that 0% body?
I think Momoa wins that battle, though. To be honest, Hemsworth is stacked and low.
Momoa's taller.
Yeah.
Exclusive sneak preview of Shazam on here, which is
terrible.
That just looks so terrible. And it's funny when I was talking about
it's a gorgeous 4K. It blows it out. But
you and I are old enough to remember the Saturday morning cartoon. It wasn't a cartoon. It was live action.
Yeah.
Billy Batson and and he would say,
the Shazam ISIS Hour,
all of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to me because all of that sort of Shazam was the word that kid said to turn himself into Captain Marvel. And but all of that
Marvel
sort of got discombobulated after a while.
Yeah.
Now you have Shazam, you have Captain Marvel.
There were two. That was the lawsuit that Marvel filed against DC, and they won the exclusive rights to the name, which is a little upsetting because I think the DC Captain Marvel predates the Marvel Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah,
because it predates even DC.
Captain
Marvel was a property acquired by DC.
Yeah, it was a different. It
goes back to the 30s or something like that.
Yeah,
so
like 1938 or something like that.
But I love the Shazam ISIS Hour. There were two different actors that played Captain Marvel on that. But I always enjoyed that bit with the elders, all the Greek gods, Zeus, and I dug all that stuff. And then Isis, the actress who plays Isis, who's still with us.
I'm still nuts about her.
It's fantastic.
So anyway, Aquaman, not bad. The Possession of Hannah Grace is an exorcism movie.
They're all the same.
They're all the same. Pretty creepy exorcism movies. Some deleted scenes and whatnot on that. That's sort of okay.
King of Thieves, 3 great actors in a pretty cool movie. This is a heist movie that stars 3 old dudes who are 3 of the greatest British actors of all time: Michael Caine, Jim Broadbent, and Tom Courtenay. Tom Courtenay, who is, I believe, now the last living cast member from Dr. Zhivago. There's a little bit of trivia. I think he is literally the last one now. But no, this is really terrific. This is it's not the Sunshine Boys, but it's kind of like a gritty British version of it in a way. Anyway, when you have aging criminals and they come back together again to pull together one last big heist. And they're all old dudes, but they still got the chops. So it's a really good bunch of actors, and I think this is a fun movie. It didn't really get much of a release. Lionsgate didn't really get behind it. I don't know why. I think that's kind of sad, but it's worth checking out, worth rediscovering. King of Thieves. And with Michael Caine, Jim Broadbent, and Tom Courtenay, and a really, really great supporting cast that includes like Ray Winstone and Michael Gambon. It's really good. James Marsh directed.
Second act, Jennifer Lopez. Second act, Jennifer Lopez has been making this movie for 25 years.
I know.
Every 6 years she makes this movie.
There's a tagline on there too, or a quote on the box, which is the one. It's hold on, I'll tell you, I laughed. I thought this was so funny because they're just totally owning it. Here, Entertainment Weekly, Jennifer Lopez in her sweet spot. That's a kind way of saying this is pretty much all she does.
Yeah, but look, I rather enjoyed this film nonetheless. For one thing, she looks fantastic in this movie, and she's playing a 40-plus-year-old a woman who has a young boyfriend, but she gets passed over for a job where she works doesn't have a college degree, and her Leah Remini, I think she and Leah are good friends anyway. son mocks up a resume for her and puts a bunch of fancy stuff on there, and she gets herself a job at this high end company, and she gets to wear these sexy clothes and walk around and do all kinds of neat stuff. What can I tell? What can I say? I literally enjoyed this movie. It was just fun and funny and kind of sweet, and Jennifer just looks great in it. Some bonus features on here include it includes like a cast and filmmakers conversation.
Yeah.
What they're doing.
Yeah.
On that thing there. Kind of neat. The Vault. This is another one of those films that James Franco is involved with, and it's really just a reason for him to let his friends and a few people that Scott Hayes and all these people make a movie. He does this sometimes, He'll just take himself, he'll put himself in the movie, and then the buddies get to go make a movie.
Have a party.
And you got Francesca Eastwood and Tara Manning and a few other people making this movie. It's about these women who are forced to rob this bank, and the crazy bank manager who locks them in the. It's just a dumbass movie. That's all it is.
Our other 4K title of the week, other than Aquaman, is Dynasties, the greatest of their kind. This is from BBC Earth. It is 4K. It is sparkling. It is dazzling. It shows off HDR in an unbelievably it's like eye-popping. All this BBC Earth stuff, and nature documentaries generally, really are kind of where 4K lives these days. That's what will show it off, even better than movies, because it's nature, it's real life, it's natural lighting, and it requires you can't sort of finesse that in a way that is forgiving like you can with CGI, right?
Yeah.
CGI looks good 80 different ways. But nature, we know if it's overdone, if it's fake. You can't fake it.
Can't just crank up the Da Vinci.
No, you can't. So this is really dazzling. It's narrated by David Attenborough, of course, aren't they all? And it's kind of simple. It's Tim and I grew up with Marlon Perkins in Wild Kingdom doing basically the exact same thing, and that's exactly what this is, except with a guy with a British accent instead of Marlon Perkins. Mutual of Omaha presents. The lion carefully observes the antelope and decides that now is a good time for a meal. And next thing, here I am. I'm 5 years old. I'm watching an animal get gored on television, and somehow it's not disturbing me. 7 o'clock, Sunday evening, and the antelope getting torn apart by a lion. Mom, look.
So funny.
It's so weird how things have changed. And then after that, we would watch All in the Family, and Archie would use profanity, and there we go. So anyway, gosh, times have changed, haven't they? And Antelope gets gored apart, and then Archie shows up at a black family's party, and there it is. That was okay. That was all okay.
I love it.
So anyway, what they do is they find five different animals. A chimpanzee, a lion, a hyena, a tiger, and a penguin. And they follow them in their sort of ritual habitat. And, the idea being, what do you have to go through to maintain the dynasty of your kind? What is, and it's really a survival. The word dynasty is purely a marketing word here. But it's beautiful, beautiful photography. And it's just wonderful nature documentary filmmaking. It's just beautifully done. So BBC Earth continues to do fantastic work and highly recommended. Dynasties, the greatest of their kind.
Neat.
All right, let me get into the Kino stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll hit some Kino because we've got an interview today, and we're going to get to that interview right here in the middle of the Kino stuff. But I'm going to start with 4 fantastic titles from the Kino Classics line, the Studio Classics line, and they are 4 road movies. These they need to get all the rest of them out ASAP, but the fact that there are 4 out at the same time is so awesome, and they are 4 of the very best. Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, and Dorothy Lamour in The Road to Utopia. Actually, it's just Road to Utopia. There's no the in front of any of these. I always do that. Road to Utopia, Road to Singapore, Road to Zanzibar, and the immortal, priceless, my favorite of all of them, Road to Morocco.
Yeah.
These movies are so priceless. You have to have all of them because they're all so wonderful and they're all so funny. Anthony Quinn shows up in Road to Morocco, by the way. People don't realize that. 1942, young Anthony Quinn, Road to Morocco. It's fantastic. Look, the stories of all of these are the same. There's no point in even going, so the difference between the Road to Morocco and Road to Zanzibar is there is no difference. It's just a different place they're going to. Bing and Bob do a whole lot of shtick. They're con men. They're on their way to somewhere. Dorothy Lamour shows up, and Bob Hope gets to do a whole lot of "row," and there you go. And they get each other into trouble and out of trouble, and there's all kinds of fourth wall breaking, and
When Bob Hope looks at the camera,
it's so much fun. I could sit, honestly, I kid you not, if I didn't have to do anything of this like for a living, if I didn't have to see new movies and watch new DVDs and honestly, I would probably wake up. I wouldn't even bathe or brush my teeth. My wife would kill me. But if I didn't have any of those restraints, I would, if I didn't have to worry about making a living and paying bills or any of that, I would probably just wake up, roll out of bed, not clean myself, sit down in front of a TV and watch Bob Hope and Elvis Presley movies all day long.
Jerry
Lewis too. And then I just go to bed.
Yeah.
I'd do that every day for the rest of my life, and I'd be perfectly happy. That's what I would do. I know that's sad. I know that's pathetic, but there you go.
I'd be right there with you, tossing some Magnum PI every now and again.
Oh, for sure. So anyway, there are audio commentaries on some of these. The audio commentary by Jack Theakston on Road to Morocco is a whole lot of fun, very informative. There are trailers on here, Trailers from Hell with John Landis. There's an audio commentary with film historian Will Friedwald and filmmaker Greg Ford on Road to Utopia. Stuff on entertaining the troops on Road to Singapore, which of course was Bob Hope's, his passion, his claim to fame. And Command Performance with Bob Hope, 1944. On the Road to Zanzibar. These are just fun movies. They're just great. They're absolutely terrific. You can't go wrong. More road movies, please. Come on, Kino. Get them all out.
Do it.
Next, and this is where our interview comes in. This is one of the most underrated movies of the 90s. Mad Dog and Glory.
Yeah.
Directed by John McNaughton, who stormed in with Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. And really, Wild Things was a John McNaughton film as well that pushed a lot of buttons. Really one of the most interesting directors of the last 20, 25 years. He's still at it. He's a Chicago native. He's back in Chicago now, and I had a chance to talk to John McNaughton for a few minutes the other day about Mad Dog and Glory. Let's just lay out exactly what this is and why this was such a big deal. I'm not sure you could even
make this movie today.
You couldn't.
This is 1993. But thematically, I don't think. It's a good movie, and I love it.
It's a really good movie, and what's so cool about it, and it's a little bit like a. We had Indecent Proposal, which kind of treads in some of the same territory at the time. But Indecent Proposal did it in a really obvious kind of exploitative way. This does it in a very intelligent way. And Bill Murray plays a gangster, and Robert De Niro plays this kind of milquetoasty crime scene photographer. There's a switch, right? You have a gangster slot, and you fill it with Bill Murray. And you have kind of a schlubby spot, and you fill it with Robert De Niro. Brilliant.
Yep, right there.
It's what makes the movie memorable, because both of them completely own those parts. And then you got Uma Thurman between them. And Uma Thurman is part of, how do we put this? If you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to sort of give away the hook, but she's
a gift, is what she is.
She's a gift.
Yeah.
To us as well.
Yeah.
She's wonderful in this.
She's wonderful in this movie. Caruso, what's his name?
David Caruso's in this too.
Is in this movie too.
Yeah.
And frankly, him in this and him in The King of New York are the two performances that made him a movie star for a little while.
True.
Before went on to that television show that he's in now.
Yeah.
But for a little while there, he was a movie star. Jade and a couple other movies, and this performance in King of New York.
The thing is, this is played. I think people are wrong when they call this a comedy, because it has comic edges, but it's more serious than just a straight comedy. It raises a lot of interesting issues, and it's just a smart film and a smart script, written by Richard Price, one of the best screenwriters of the past quarter century, shot by Robbie Mueller, one of the great cinematographers of all time, and he talks about that too in our interview. And this is just a really, really smart film. Elmer Bernstein did the score. Such a smart movie. Kathy Baker's in this as well. So Mad Dog and Glory finally on Blu-ray, and I'm going to cut away right now and let you listen to my conversation with director John McNaughton. We are speaking today with John McNaughton, the director of Mad Dog and Glory, which has become a real cult classic and is now finally out on Blu-ray. And it's a wonderful rediscovery for anyone that didn't see it the first time around in 1993. John, Mad Dog and Glory is the first thing that everybody always says is that when, and I remember this really well when it was announced, and Robert De Niro and Bill Murray. And, oh, yeah, you know, one of them is going to be a crime scene photographer and the other one's going to be a gangster. Well, of course you're going to have Bill Murray as the crime scene photographer and Robert De Niro as the gangster. And it turns out that we're completely that's the inverse of it. It's the idea of taking these two actors that have such a sort of profile and casting them completely against type was a really brave thing to do. Talk about how that came to be and whether you received any pushback on that.
I was treated very well by everyone. Martin Scorsese, who was the producer, and the studio, and they were very supportive. So, you say it's, I forget exactly how you refer to it, very brave or whatever. It was probably more stupid on my part. I was, still pretty young and trying to be transgressive, which was how I started my career. But interestingly, when Martin Scorsese sent me the script and asked me to if I wanted to direct the film, which of course it was a great script. It was Martin Scorsese, and I of course wanted to direct the film. But I never had anybody pushed on me. So Marty told me at one point, he said, well, Bob has read this script and he really likes it. And, would you be interested in talking to him? And it's like, no, I don't want to talk to Bob De Niro. Of course not. But, Bob De Niro, sure. Please let me talk to him. So he was very interested. And it was later on, we saw a number of people for the gangster role, Frank Milo. But it was very later on that Bob suggested Bill Murray. I think Bob loves working with people who are funny or hanging out with people who are funny. And when he mentioned Bill to me, I was just like, gee, that's an odd choice. And after about 15 seconds, I went, but it's a brilliant one. But we actually had two table readings of the script to decide which role Bob would play. Bob was on board first. Bill wasn't with us yet. And, in the morning he read Mad Dog, and I think in the afternoon he read The Gangster, Frank Milo. And interestingly, we had just John Turturro and just great New York actors at the table reads. But in the one where Bob did read Mad Dog, Christopher Walken read The Gangster, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh wow, that would have been. Oh, I can't imagine.
I wish we had video. I really so do wish we had video. So it was just, to me, and I always like to try and do something you haven't seen before. That's what interests me when I read a script. If I've seen this before, and mostly the answer is yes. And Mad Dog and Glory, the answer was no. I've never seen this before. Never seen this story. This is great, original, brilliantly written, Richard Price, etc. So it was just, it'd be easy for Bob to play the gangster. It's the expected thing. It'd be, much more palatable, I guess, to a mainstream audience to see Bill play the mild-mannered guy. But we just felt it would be much more of a challenge for all of us to flip the roles.
Well, it's the thing that I think really sets the film apart, even today, and especially today, because we look back on it and it's still their chemistry in the film is so perfect. I mean, it really is. It worked out exactly as I think the film needed it to work out. And the interesting thing to me, I mean, I remember very well, I was just fresh out of film school at the time, and writing lots of reviews and trying to sort of, show my chops. And I remember the thing that stood out to me at the time was that we hadn't really seen Bill Murray go in this direction before. We'd seen him, he'd tried going dramatic once before in Razor's Edge a decade earlier in directing himself. Didn't really quite work out. And he then, was coming off of What About Bob? He had just done Groundhog Day, and so, those are two of his biggest hits. And everybody kind of felt like, here he is, he's getting his comedy on again. And you put him in Mad Dog and Glory and reminded us that there's a whole different dimension to him as an actor. And I think that was
when we look at where he is today as an actor, which is considered a much more serious character actor, that really kind of starts with Mad Dog and Glory. Have you ever really given that any thought?
Well, I hope so. Like I said, they were both challenged because they weren't playing their standard characters. And I think they both acquitted themselves magnificently. But these days, I'm teaching at Second City now, teaching a master class in directing at the new Harold Ramis Film School. And I show Mad Dog to them, and I watch Bill's performance, and it just sort of floors me how good he is in that role.
Yeah.
Because you make a movie and then you don't see it for 10 years, 12 years more. And it's a whole new film when you see it those so many years later. So he's just really great. And Bob, too. Bob is playing this, kind of milquetoast character, which is not who he is in person.
He seems a little bit, well, it's funny that Marty was involved, too, because he seems a little bit slightly, just one step removed from Rupert Pupkin in King of Comedy. There's a slight Rupert to his performance as well. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Talk for a second, too, about the script. You had a Richard Price script, and Richard Price had, I think, just done Clockers the year before, and, obviously a really distinguished name. How did this, talk just a little bit about how the film came together from the script stage?
Well, as I say, Martin's, again, I was sitting in my old loft here in Chicago on Milwaukee Avenue, and one day the phone rang, and it was a woman named Melanie Friesen, who worked as Marty's development person, and she said, "Is this John McNaughton?" I said, "Yeah," and she goes, "Well, I'm Melanie Friesen. I work for Marty Scorsese, and I saw your movie, Henry, and I really loved it, and I showed it to Marty, and he loved it, and he wants to talk to you." And I was sort of like, "Yeah, who is this really?" But it was all, it was on the up and up, and she says, "Well, are you going to be there in 15 minutes?" Yeah, I'll make it a point to be here in 15 minutes, and he called. And he said he had this script he'd like me to read. So he's, and I had turned down so many scripts that were bad because after Henry, I just kept getting bad horror film scripts. So I said, I was so happy to hear from Martin Scorsese, and I knew who Richard Price was and his books. And the script came, and I said a prayer, "Please, God, let this be good, because if I don't like it, I'm still going to have to turn it down." And of course, the first page was like, holy, this someone who can really write. This guy is like, and it was just a fabulous script. And I will say that Richard Price's ear for dialogue is so acute, and he can write, he can slice it so thin. And so when we had 2 weeks rehearsal with myself, Uma, Bob, and Bill, and we sort of made a vow that we weren't going to mess with the dialogue, especially Bill, who king of improv. He did a certain amount of improv stuff that he'd added, but we never changed Richard's dialogue, hardly a bit. And we had Richard in for the second week of rehearsal, so any problems the actors did have, Richard custom tailored the script to their, to their spec. So it was like by the time we hit the set, it was like custom tailored clothing, those roles.
Your collaborators on this too. When we look back on this now with a little bit of perspective, it's really amazing. Not just De Niro and Bill Murray, but you had Uma Thurman, Kathy Baker, and then you had two of the all-time great collaborators. I just like to hear a little bit about that too. Working with Elmer Bernstein, and particularly with Robbie Mueller on the cinematography. Robbie just passed only a few months ago, middle of last year. And such a distinguished career, working with Wim Wenders and with Barbe Schroeder and Jim Jarmusch. Really just even Peter. I think he did a couple of films for Peter Bogdanovich and Alex Cox. So I mean, it's just one of the all-time great DPs with such a versatile eye. Talk about what it was like working with them and what they brought to the film.
Well, I'll start with Elmer because my knowledge of Elmer goes back to childhood. And when I was a kid, I played the piano, and I would play. I had a great piano teacher, Mrs. Frank, and we'd get sheet music, and this, I played all the old American songbook for my father, and I resented it at the time because I loved rock and roll, and now I'm so happy because I know all that music, which is such great music. But I used to play occasionally movie or television theme music, and I remember Walking the Wild Side, which Elmer wrote and conducted. And so I knew, again, when I would listen to music and film and TV, occasionally I'd hear something that was exceptionally good. And I go, Nick, I have to see this again. Who did this? There was no internet. You couldn't look it up. And all of a sudden, the name that kept coming up was Elmer Bernstein. He did the theme for a TV show starring Darren McGavin called Riverboat, which is a really cool piece of music that I used to hear every week and loved. So getting to work with meeting Elmer was just, God, it was just such a thrill. And then working at the old BMG studios recording in New York, which used to be the RCA studios where Toscanini recorded, the RCA, Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra, and Elvis recorded, and everybody recorded. Unfortunately gone now. I think we had a 62-piece orchestra, Elmer conducting. It was like, oh my God, where am I? I'm in heaven. I died and went to heaven, sitting in the booth as he recorded that score. He was just such a lovely gentleman. He was fabulous. Robbie, on the other hand, is without a doubt a brilliant cinematographer. I always loved his work, but he was pretty prickly, and we didn't always see eye to eye. We got through it, and but he and I had our good days and bad days, shall I say? But there were times I wanted to fire him. But
well,
but
honestly,
but
I've heard that.
Dailies, and
I've heard that from others too.
Yeah,
I've heard that from others too about Robbie.
Yeah. I go to dailies and see the work, and I go, okay, one more day, Robbie, and we made it. We made it. So.
Well, it all came together beautifully, and it really is. I think it's a wonderful thing now that it's on Blu-ray, and everybody can rediscover it, looking at least as well as it did in 1992. I think the Blu-ray is really it's a wonderful transfer, and it'll gain a whole new generation of followers.
Good.
John, thank you for speaking with us, and
wish
you all the best with this. Is there anything coming up soon that we should be looking for from you?
Well, I've been working on various projects, but who can say? It's like, Sisyphus. You roll the rock up the hill, and then it gets right to the precipice, and then it rolls over your toes, So I had a great project going with Flannery O'Connor's A Good Man is Hard to Find, which was one of my favorite short stories from one of the greatest story writers America has ever produced. Working on it for about a year, and one day the producer disappeared. So if just disappeared, I can't find him. So who can say? I really loved that project, and maybe it'll be resurrected. But I always have a number of projects rolling those rocks up the hill. And hopefully soon one of them will make it over the precipice.
Well, keep pushing, and we wish you all the best, and we'll speak soon. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. All right.
And there it is. So super nice guy, John McNaughton. Wish him all the best, and happy to have Mad Dog and Glory on Blu-ray. Really, just a terrific re-release.
Good year, 1993.
It was a good year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite all-time years. It's Schindler's List and The Piano and Farewell My Concubine, which won the Cannes Film Festival, and that's Remains of the Day. I mean, it was an amazing year. All right, here's I'll go through the rest of these keynote titles really quickly. They're all great. All of these worth having. Before and After, the Barbet Schroeder film with Meryl Streep and Liam Neeson. Just an absolutely sharp movie. Barbet Schroeder, we obviously Barbet Schroeder, somebody that Robbie Mueller had worked with, mentioned that as well with John McNaughton. It's a great thriller. Some of the best performances you will ever see from Meryl Streep and Liam Neeson. It's not a necessarily unique story, but the performances are just absolutely perfect. And Edward Furlong is in this. I'd forgotten about that. The Doctor with William Hurt, directed by Randa Haynes. Whatever happened to Randa Haynes? Yeah.
Children of a Lesser God, and then The Doctor, and we thought she was going to break that glass ceiling, and she kind of went away. I mean, it's very sad. This is a wonderful movie about a doctor who gets cancer, and if you've ever been through, my father died of cancer. I've had a lot of close friends die from cancer, and if you've ever been through the system, you get very cynical about it because you realize that there's a lot of money to be made in treating cancer. And man, this movie is the only one I've ever seen that just owns that fact. And there's a speech in it where he lays it all out there, and it's beautiful. It's devastating, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Audio commentary with Miranda Haynes, moderated by Heather Buckley, who's a filmmaker. Beautiful movie produced by Laura Ziskin. A lot of names we just don't see on movies anymore, frankly.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Perkins, so good in that too. Duets, a movie I'd completely forgotten about. This is a really, really sweet film. Directed by Bruce Paltrow, father of Gwyneth Paltrow. And it's just one of those fun kind of comedy dramas about 6 people who, kind of their lives get tied together through a karaoke championship. And it's just all about these wonderful, wonderful performances. Gwyneth obviously is in it because Dad's not going to leave his daughter out. She means too much. Maria Bello, Paul Giamatti, Andre Brower, Scott Speedman, Huey Lewis. Those are the people. It's a fun cast. The Midnight Man with Burt Lancaster. I had forgotten how much I really, really enjoyed this movie. This is a really, really fun 1974 movie at a time when, some of the Burt Lancaster's getting a little long in the tooth, and he's not the star that he used to be. But he's still got it. He plays a tough Chicago cop who has done a stint in prison because he lost his mind and killed his wife's lover. And so now he's trying to get his job back, his life back together again, and he's still got the fire in the belly. It's a good thriller mystery.
I think he has a director's credit on that, if I'm not mistaken.
On The Midnight Man?
Yeah.
Did he direct it too?
Yeah,
He did. He co-directed it with Roland Kibbe. It's all him. It's all him. The Favor with a very young Brad Pitt and a ridiculously young Bill Pullman. And a hysterical mullet sporting Ken Wall. And they're not even the funniest in it. Elizabeth McGovern has a total 80s hairstyle. It's quite a thing. This is a 1994 movie that really is still rooted deeply in the 80s. And it's not great, but it's directed by Donald Petrie of the Petrie family. They all do decent work. It's a good score by Thomas Newman. But it's a romantic comedy that addresses all of those light-hearted relationship tropes that we learned to live with in the 90s.
Harley Jane Kozak. I used to be nuts about her.
I know. Where'd she go?
Yeah.
See, people come and go.
It's been 25 years.
They all come and go. Yeah. I got a couple here about love and relationships from 2 different eras. One is Losing It. Losing It is one of those movies that sort of like came from the Porky's era. It's 1983. And it's obviously all about its title. The funniest thing about Losing It is who made it and who's in it.
Yeah.
It's got Tom Cruise in it.
Yeah.
And it was directed by Curtis Hanson. And if you were to have a trivia game and to say, when did Curtis Hanson direct Tom Cruise? I guarantee you, nobody is going to come up with Losing It except our podcast listeners. Now you win the pot. It's not a very good movie, but it's just interesting because who's in it? Shelley Long is in it, and Jackie Earle Haley, and it's for what it is, it's okay. The other one is Lovers and Other Strangers, which is a lot better, from 1970. Lovers and Other Strangers is probably most famous for the song, and that really is kind of sort of the root of this. Cy Howard directed this. I don't know anything else that Cy Howard did. But they did a new 4K scan of the original camera negative, which is in pretty decent shape. It's not restored. It's not perfect. It looks pretty good. There's an audio commentary with Lee Gambin on this that contextualizes it. It's based on a play. If you're not familiar with the play, then you probably wouldn't really understand the historical context. So you do need to listen to the audio commentary. Joe Bologna and Renee Taylor wrote the play, and then they adapted into this movie, which is kind of a little bit like a Love American style with slightly better cast.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this thing. B. Arthur, Cloris Leachman, Gig Young, Harry Guardino, names that were all legendary in the 70s and the 80s. And that's all it is. It's just it's a look at love in the 1960s and the early 70s.
Cy wrote "That's My Boy," that Martin and Lewis movie.
Oh, did he? Is that where he
wrote that movie? Yeah.
Okay,
Smothers Brothers, that kind of guy. Yeah.
We got for a few dollars more is finally out. They've released the others in the Dollars trilogy already. So The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Fistful of Dollars already out on Blu-ray. Now few dollars more is out. So the whole thing is lots of extras here. So pretty good transfer. I think they can still do better. But, a ton of extras all on the history of the film and, location comparisons and trailers from hell with Ernest Dickerson. It's all right. A great movie. I just wish the transfer were a little bit better. They are not taking care of the elements as much as I wish they had.
Yeah.
Supposedly gave a war and nobody came. This has totally fallen away, and I'm sorry that it has. Another movie from 1970, directed by the great Hy Averback, and what a fun movie this is. Really, really great comedic performances by Ernest Borgnine and Suzanne Plachette in particular. Donna Michi is just wonderful in this. Bradford Dillman, Ivan Dixon, Brian Keith. It's a really fun ensemble. And it's a little bit like a lot of those comedies from the 60s and the 70s. You could Mad World. There's one that was what was the Norman Lear one?
I'm thinking of the one with Alan Arkin and the guys.
Catch-22.
Yeah.
It's got aspects of all of those, and it's a military thing. It's a bunch of guys on an army base at war with the people in the nearby town, and it's madcap and it's hysterical. And it's an all-star cast, and everybody's great. And I just love Suzanne Plachette. Can I say that?
Yeah.
She was like.
Oh my God,
Suzanne Plachette!
Don't even get me started.
I know.
Between her and Barbara Eden and Elizabeth Montgomery,
there it is. And Barbara Feldon.
Oh my God.
And Batgirl.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Oh my God.
There it is. Rock Hudson, Robert Stack, and Dorothy Malone in The Tarnished Angels, directed by the great Douglas Sirk. Not one of Douglas Sirk's best films, but certainly a very interesting film. This is from 1957. It's right in that pocket when he's really kind of trying to infuse genre movies with otherwise very significant themes.
Well, and that's based on a Faulkner novel.
Yes.
So which is a little...
He's a little trapped by Faulkner's story to begin with. But it's a decent adaptation of the Faulkner by George Zuckerman. Kind of a real journeyman workman-like screenwriter, and but otherwise you're watching it for the stars, and they're fine. It's it's a big flamboyant Faulkner story, but the stars are good. And then three more here from the wonderful people at 3D Film Archive, who continue to do these really interesting 3D restorations for Kino, is Javaro, Headhunters of the Amazon. Now, it's not a good film. It's a really silly movie from 1954. It's one of those silly adventure movies that's shot entirely on backlots, and it's preposterous, and there's no reason to see it other than for the same reason that you saw the one that came before it, Sangaree, which was released some months ago as well from the 3D Film Archive and Kino. And the reason you're watching this is because the 3D work in this is really fascinating and it's really good. And if you're interested in kind of studying the history of 3D, this is a great evolution, and especially comparing it to Sangaree. What I really like about this is the casting. I find the casting hilarious. Brian Keith again, but here we go. Rhonda Fleming. Always love Rhonda Fleming because she married Ted Mann, and I used to work for Mann Theaters, and I've seen Rhonda Fleming many times in the flesh, and she's lovely. And this was before she married Ted Mann and gave up her acting career. But most importantly, Fernando Lamas.
Yes.
Father of
much
Lorenzo.
better to look good. He never said that.
Never,
Billy
but that's, I know.
That's what I go to.
But you know what? The truth is, he's better looking than his kid.
Yeah.
Lorenzo's tried to make a career being a real hunk on TV.
It was that riding around that motorcycle.
Yeah. But no. Fernando had it going on, and he takes his shirt off, and he does look good. He looks phenomenal. Todd Haynes, Far From Heaven.
Oh, wow.
This is a relatively
Speaking of
recent
Douglas Sirk.
Douglas Sirk, exactly. 2002, Todd Haynes, who is really hit and miss in movies, but God bless him, he takes risks. He's an experimental filmmaker by nature.
That's the thing that I always say. I'm not there about Todd Haynes. This is an experimental filmmaker.
He takes risks.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't pan out, Okay, it doesn't pan out. He's going to do something different the next time.
Yeah.
So he pops out of a different hole every single time, and you never know what to expect. But when he hits a home run, like he does in Far From Heaven, he nails it.
Yeah.
And the thing about Far From Heaven, which is a straight-up Douglas Sirk melodrama, and there are comparisons online I recommend people to check out, which do frame-by-frame analysis of shots in here that are taken right out of All That Heaven Allows and all of these other Douglas Sirk films that are where he clearly is bringing this huge Sirkian IQ to this movie. And it's a big blaring melodrama, and Dennis Quaid is so good in it. And
Dennis Haysbert, I think maybe
Dennis
after that, Love Field might have been his first big film.
Yeah.
Dennis Haysbert, very good in that movie.
Really good. And Soderbergh was a producer on this, along with George Clooney. It came through their company, and it's really great. John Wells was an executive producer. I mean, a lot of important people made it possible for this film to make it through.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing about this. It's not straight Sirk. It's because Todd Haynes is a fan of Fassbender, and Fassbender is a fan of Sirk. So he's giving you his interpretation of Fassbender's vision of a Douglas Sirk homage. It's really interesting. It's like 2 levels deep in the cinema nerd pedigree.
And I think that we have to say that filtering it through the gay sensibilities,
Dennis Quaid being a closeted gay man,
with Todd Haynes and all that kind of stuff, very, very, very. You get a different. You get a different thing there.
It's almost what he's doing is he's taking the struggles from Sirk's Lust for Life. And he's taking them away from race and putting it into the realm of sexuality.
Exactly.
Because Sirk's sensibilities and structure lends itself to that. And Fassbender, of course, famously bisexual and dealt with both race and sexuality in his movies. So if you look at this through the prism of Todd Haynes and Werner Fassbender, and Douglas Sirk, you're seeing 3 different eras, 3 different sensibilities, 3 different great filmmakers. It's
with all of these issues at hand. Interesting stuff.
So good. And then the last one here is from the American Film Theater, and that was they released the box set of all the American Film Theater movies a while back on DVD. Now they're with Kino. This was a kind of an experimental thing that the Eli Landau organization did in the 1970s mainly, where they went and they did filmed versions of a lot of famous stage plays. And they wanted to sort of give them the big epic sheen, big screen treatment. And that was called the American Film Theater. And it was a whole series of films. I think it was about 8 or 9 of them in total. Might have been about as many as 15. And so this is from 1973, and it's The Iceman Cometh.
Oh, Frankenheimer. The Frankenheimer?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the Frankenheimer version of it. And they went and they really, really nailed it. They took, famous Eugene O'Neill play, and they conscripted John Frankenheimer to direct it, and then they went and just nailed it with the cast. Lee Marvin, Frederick March, Jeff Bridges, Robert Ryan, Bradford Dillman, bang, and there it is.
This is like a 3-hour movie, if I recall.
It is 4 hours.
4 hours.
It is 4 hours.
Moses Gunn. I remember this movie.
But it's good.
Yeah.
It's really, really good, and it's one of the best of the American Film Theater ones. It's on 2 discs. There is the complete 4-hour director's cut on disc 1, and then on disc 2 is a restoration of what you remember, which is the 3-hour theatrical cut.
Okay, yes.
So, and then there's an interview with Edie Landau, who's the widow of Eli Landau, and a promotional film for the whole series, the whole concept of the American Film Theater. That's really, really interesting. But yeah, Jeff Bridges is super young in this. It's one of his first films, and he stands up with Lee Marvin and all the rest of them, and he owns it. Does a really, really good job. Robert Ryan, all grizzled and aging. It's just beautiful. And for those who don't know, Iceman Cometh is one of the all-time great Broadway.
Hickey. I played Hickey in high school.
Did you really?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Sherm played Hickey. Hickey is the central character. I think Lee Marvin plays him in the movie.
Yeah.
The salesman he's going to do. Sherm played him at the Pasadena Playhouse about 1995. Sherman, our friend Sherman.
Yeah. There's a great. And one of my favorite things about Iceman Cometh isn't even Iceman Cometh. It's the line that Dustin Hoffman has in Tootsie, where he talks about, I was in the Iceman cometh, and I don't even remember the line, but I just remember laughing because it's just so completely out of place. But anyway, so there it is, all from Kino. It's a wonderful, wonderful month of Kino releases, especially those road movies.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Let's do TV.
We'll do some TV.
Yeah.
The Love Boat, season 4, volume 1, season 4.
They sent us volume 2 last time, and we didn't get volume 1, so I wanted to make sure we talked about volume. Yeah.
Neat stuff here. Of course, I'm ridiculous, nuts about the Love Boat. Special features include some of the episode promos. I used to love those episode promos.
I love
they
them.
would do right before.
Yeah.
Just most fantastic stuff they were. Season 4 from volume 1. Includes a few special features, Fred Grandi and the folks. Soul Food, the complete series. All 4 seasons of Soul Food, the series. Soul Food, the movie, George Tillman film. About 1996, 7, something like that.
Which our friend Tino Ghost wrote.
Yeah.
She didn't get a credit for it, but she did. She introduced Big Mama. She introduced a lot of the essential elements.
She fixed the movie.
She did.
Is what she did. And so this series, which is a series that I love, ran from about 2000, 2004, something like that. This series, Soul Food. Vanessa Williams, the other Vanessa Williams, and everybody else. 74 episodes on 19 discs. Look, a lot of black folks went through this television series,
it started a lot to careers.
Started a lot of careers.
Started a lot of careers. It really did, and it's it's a sharp show. It's so, I mean, I hate to do the black white analogy things like Empire is basically just a black dynasty, but it is.
Yeah.
Soul Food has its own profile, but in a way, it's kind of like a black 8 is enough.
Yeah. Yeah,
is kind
exactly.
of what it is.
It's just it's literally this sort of family drama,
But most of the people I know who love Soul Food are like white and Hispanic families
because the exact same family.
They have the same family.
It's like literally the same family. I saw the neat there.
Yeah.
Hold the Sunset, John Cleese series, which was sort of funny. John Cleese, Allison Steadman. It's about this older couple who are ready to retire. She's going to marry John Cleese, and then her 50-year-old son moves in with them. And it's funny. What are you going to do? BBC sort of thing. John Cleese in that series. Hold the Sunset. Bonus features include some blooper reels. Vera, season 8. Vera is just a DCI Vera. She's just so good, and it just does a great.
Brenda Blethyn, baby.
Just doing outstanding work in this series. What is it about the British and their sort of? You had Helen Mirren in the Inspector series. You had
procedurals and mysteries they just run in the British blood.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a Conan Doyle thing. I don't know where it quite comes from, but it really, because it's almost a phenomenon strictly of the 1950s and 60s forward.
Yeah.
It's like Agatha Christie maybe sort of lit that fuse. I don't know, but they're incomparably good at it.
You do this series. If they did this series or one like it in the United States, she would be about 40 and hot.
I was going to say 25 and hot.
Or, maybe, something like that.
But find a reason for make her at 25.
But in the UK, they let people look like people, and they give them jobs that didn't make. Anyway,
the old dames.
Stuff. Yeah. Blue Bloods, man. 8th season.
I never expected this show to last that long.
It's insane. Longer on this Tom Selleck than it was
Magnum PI.
Yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
It's just nuts. But
bizarre.
there it is. Family of Cops from Chicago. That's what the show's all about. Wahlberg, it's a pretty good show.
Longer on Blue Bloods than Magnum PI. It's unbelievable.
The final season of House of Cards, man, he jacked the. That's what we were talking about.
I know.
This is what we were talking. He just jacked everybody.
They found a way to get another season out of it.
Yeah.
But how many more seasons would there have been?
Yeah, if he hadn't
behaved.
Just behave, for God's sakes, man. You're a grown man, for God's sakes. Anyway, at least Robin had the opportunity to tap it all out properly and just get the hell out of there. Volume 6, chapters 66 through 73, the final season of House of Cards.
Yeah.
And I never did watch The Last Ship. This is the 5th and final season. The 5th complete season, I should say.
I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it.
I don't know. Sherm did an episode of it.
I think third season's when I heard of it, or first. It was, I mean, there's too much television right now. That's part of the problem. Things get lost.
And to be honest with you, network television, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, Unwatchable. Mostly.
It is unwatchable.
Unwatchable.
This is
mostly.
actually a really interesting show, and it makes me want to go back and kind of catch up on it, and maybe binge the whole thing. It's pretty sharp stuff. TNT, right?
Yeah,
TNT.
TNT.
TNT. Then real quickly, Ken Follett's The Key to Rebecca. Remember when everything Ken Follett was on TV back in the 70s? So yeah, Ken Follett, wrote a lot of cheesy, kind of thrillery, mystical, semi, not really science fiction, but they all kind of felt like science fiction. They all verged on that a little bit. So Ken Follett wrote a lot of that kind of cheesy stuff back in the day. And he wrote The Key to Rebecca, which they made into a TV movie with Cliff Robertson and David Soul.
And more importantly, Season Hubley.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's another one. I think they keep coming back to me. I'm so nuts about Season Hubley.
It's nuts. So it all takes place in Cairo during World War II, and it's a spy story. And it's rather silly, and gets into a whole lot of. It's just, Egypt is a mystical backdrop, and where it goes is rather silly. It's like The Mummy without the mummy. But nonetheless, if you like Cliff Robertson, if you like David Soul, and I love David Soul, don't give up on us. I still remember when he sang that on Starsky and Hutch. Legendary Beasts is a limited series. It's 3 little kind of CGI-driven documentary installments that look at 3 mythical figures, notably the Kraken, Mega Jaws, and Bird Monster. The Kraken is probably the only one that anybody will obviously tune into and go, "Oh, I've heard of the Kraken. Release the Kraken." Everybody knows that. But there's some other weird stuff here, like the Dakuwaka, the all-knowing shark god. I mean, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. That's a thing? Really? So, I mean, there's, it's okay, mid-level CGI. It's kind of a fun thing to put on in the background. I just wish that Leonard Nimoy narrated it. Ancient Secrets of the Bible, the complete series. This is a big award-winning thing that goes into a whole lot of... It takes a... not quite scholarly approach, but a relatively scholarly approach to certain questions, things, supernatural things in the Bible. Is it symbolic? Was it fact? Was it fiction? Is it somewhat fact, somewhat fiction? What was it? Was it an extrapolation of something else? Is there anything to it, or is it just do we not know? And some are obviously better than others. Some of them are silly, like Israel's Miracle War. Was the 6-Day War the start of Armageddon? No, it wasn't. No. And I don't need to watch this to know that. No, it wasn't. Categorically, it was not. That's a stupid one. But then there's stuff like, have we found the Garden of Eden? Well, that's an interesting thing, and they handle it very nicely. Then there's dumb stuff like, can the Bible code predict the future? No, it can't. No, because there is no Bible code. That's just a made up thing. So stop that. Yeah. But then you get stuff like Jesus' travels. Did Jesus journey beyond the Holy Land? Did Jesus go to India? Well, there are legends, and that's interesting. So there's a lot of stuff on here. It's a really interesting series. And then lastly here, Miracles, The Power of Faith, also from Mill Creek. This is a similar kind of a thing. 4 episodes that go into alleged real-life miracles and events in people's lives, things interpreted as miracles. Is this something spiritual? Is it something scientific? This kind of takes somewhat the same investigative approach and is quite well done. It's not as sensational as you would expect it to be. 4 parts in religion, miracles, and prayer, angels, spirit guides, and signs, miracle healings and spirit bodies, and synchronicity, science, and astral travel, which is where it gets a little weird. But Miracles, The Power of Faith, interesting series.
Neat stuff.
Yep.
Damages, the complete series here, Glenn Close and Rose Byrne in this series, that kind of came and went, but nevertheless, unlike with the Academy Awards, which Glenn still hasn't won one.
I know, but she will with Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking so, right? Well, she got 2 Emmy Awards for this, so
she did. Yeah, so she's got something.
Yeah, so that's not nothing. Courtroom drama is basically what this is.
Yeah, Damage was a good series. Good series. And she made it.
Yeah. A lot of neat people came through this series too. Lily Tomlin, Martin Short, sort of playing dramatic roles, which was kind of neat. So far as I'm concerned. Anyway, the Brokenwood Mysteries, Series 5, is about this detective that goes to the small town of Brokenwood to investigate a crime and ends up staying there. Again, a solid as a rock sort of detective series coming out of the UK. You Can't say anything bad about that. From George R.R. Martin, Night Flyers, Season 1. So this is the series. Actually, I don't know the story, but in this series, they're on this ship because the world is coming to an end. So they get on this ship called the Night Flyer, and they launch out, and they're going to rendezvous with this alien vessel and figure out what's going on, and you never see the captain. It's kind of creepy. It's basically just a horror movie. It kind of reminded me of Event Horizon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So I imagine fans of George R.R. will be interested in this. Not a single thing by way of a special feature on Season 1 of Night
Probably
Flyers.
doesn't deserve it. All right, we're going to wrap out with some Shout classic catalog titles, starting with some Shout Select stuff. First one I want to make mention of is Backbeat, which I really highly recommend.
Yeah.
I love Backbeat. I'm so glad that they've done this. They've made a Shout Select title out of it with a lot of great extras. Backbeat might also be the best Stephen Dorff performance ever.
Yeah.
And Ian Softly, fine director, some of his best work as well. Backbeat is all about Stuart Sutcliffe, who is otherwise known as the Fifth Beatle.
Yeah,
Now, Stuart Sutcliffe, there's also the other guy who was a Beatle, whose name I'm forgetting.
The drummer guy.
Who was before Ringo.
Before Ringo, the drummer. I can't remember.
Who was too good looking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was too good of a drummer. So
Yeah.
they got rid of him and brought Ringo. And I got a big nose and I'm kind of lame. Hey, hi, I'll make movies like Caveman and marry Barbara Bach. My name's Ringo. And he'll probably outlive all the rest of them, too.
Yeah, man.
So, but anyway, other than that guy whose name we're forgetting, Stuart Sutcliffe was a Fifth Beatle, and he was not fired. He walked away.
Yeah.
And fascinating life. Stephen Dorff plays him, and it's really, really a good movie. It's such an interesting unknown story. Cheryl Lee, coming right off of Twin Peaks, does a beautiful job as his romantic lead in this. It's such a wonderful, touching, sad story. I really, really like this a lot. And one of the most interesting little trivia things here: Ian Hart plays John Lennon.
Yeah.
For the second time.
Yeah.
Ian Hart was cast as John Lennon because he had been in in kind of an experimental black and white hour-long semi-feature called The Hours and Times, which recently was re-released. It was restored and re-released recently, which is very different. And he plays John Lennon very differently. He plays John Lennon with their manager on a weekend in Spain, in Barcelona, where it's suggested that there may have been some kind of a same-sex relationship and experimentation and all that. So very different take on John Lennon here, but the same actor, and it was a superb job doing it. So anyway, but you're really seeing this for the direction, for the script, for an incredible performance from Stephen Dorff. So well done, Backbeat. Pete Best. That was the other one.
Yeah.
Pete Best. So, and ultimately there were 6 Beatles, folks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Actual members anyway, yeah.
Also from Shout Select, California with a K, released basically around the same time as Natural Born Killers, the Oliver Stone adaptation of the Tarantino film that Tarantino so completely hated, and which I hate too, because I think Natural Born Killers is unwatchable. But
I like that one more than you. But this is better.
This is a better film.
Yeah.
California is a better film. It's basically the same story. It just does it differently. And it does it a little more believably. Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis, David Duchovny of all people.
What's interesting is that Juliette Lewis is in both of the movies.
I know. That's what made it weird. Yeah, strange. But anyway, this is the new theatrical cut, first time ever on Blu-ray. There's an interview with Dominic Senna, the director, and all of the original EPK stuff. And I'm so grateful that they actually say on the box, original EPK. They don't put a whole ton of featurettes and pretend that it's new material. They just say, we took the EPK that we did, that we just threw the thing on here. And I appreciate that. So that's Shout Select Collector's Edition.
What do you gonna knock off a few more over there?
No, hit that one.
Because look, Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs. I love this movie. It's so funny. Jonathan Silverman, introducing Jonathan Silverman, as a matter of fact. I think it was his first big movie. Blythe Danner. It's just the funniest movie. Judith Ivey. What can I say? It's basically the story of Neil Simon himself growing up in Brighton Beach. He just sort of took and converted into his wacky family, and
so funny.
And it's just the funniest movie, and so
funny.
sweet, and so you can't go wrong with Brighton Beach. Remember, there's just absolutely nothing on this, though.
I know.
What is up with Shout Select?
There may not be anything to put on.
I guess so. Yeah, 1986. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe there wasn't 1986. Anyway, 1986. Brighton Beach. Wonderful movie.
And then the Street Fighter collection. Last week or a few weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we covered the female Street Fighter collection. And Shout now has released all of the original Sonny Chiba Street Fighter movies in a Shout Select set that is wonderful. They did new 2K scans of all of them, so they look fantastic. And there's even a new interview with Sonny Chiba on here. These movies were really controversial at the time. They include, by the way, the Street Fighter, the first original Street Fighter from 1974 is here in its uncut version. This was one of the most significant martial arts films outside of the Bruce Lee films to come over here. This is the uncut version. There was a cut version. These are all uncut. And for Street Fighter's Last Revenge, also made the same year. These are all the same year, all 74. They include the U.S. and the Japanese cut. So for the Street Fighter uncut version, for Return of the Street Fighter uncut version, Street Fighter's Last Revenge, U.S. and Japanese cuts. Forget about the U.S., just watch the Japanese cut. They're brutal. They're not as brutal as what you see on, like, Daredevil now, but at the time, this was shocking. This was really shocking to people, and they tried to get Street Fighter banned because it was just so violent. And I'm thinking, after seeing, are you aware of what was going on in Hong Kong at the time? Have you seen any Hong Kong movies?
Yeah.
But we got over that very quickly. So really, really fun. Sonny Chiba is still around, man. He's still in movies. He's still doing his thing. And these are really, really fun movies. He's just one of the all-time greats.
Cool. Someone to watch over me. A Ridley Scott film.
Yeah.
I always forgot that this was a
post Blade Runner.
Yeah, post Blade Runner. It's because it's sort of like a New York thriller with Tom Berenger.
Kind of a weird thing for him to do.
Kind of very, very sort of odd turn for him. He must have been just looking for something to do, I suppose. Anyway, it's about this rich socialite Mimi Rogers, who sees a mob hit.
Yeah.
And this cop gets assigned to protect her. Tom Berenger's on the night shift. He sort of falls for her. Look, it's an okay movie, sort of middle 80s, sort of,
it's
thriller.
It's very 80s. It has a real Miami Vice sheen to it. Almost feels like a Michael Mann film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me, again, can't make this movie as a feature film today.
No way. It'd be straight to video, and it wouldn't have A-list stars in it.
Yeah.
It would like show up on Cinemax or something.
Exactly. Interesting stuff. Interview with the writer Howard Franklin. Interview with the director of photography. But that's about it.
Yep. And we're gonna wind down here and knock us as many as we can in the last few little space. The last Shout Select title we have, and then the rest are just regular shouts, is Cheech Marin in Born in East L.A.
Yeah.
Even did a song, which is hysterically funny. Done, Springsteen style, like, Born in the USA, Born in East L.A. It's very funny. So Cheech and a film historian by the name of Mark Edward Hook do an audio commentary here, and it's really good. New interviews with Cheech Marin and all of it, and two of his actors, including Paul Rodriguez. There's even an extended television cut of the film in television aspect ratio, which I don't really understand why he did that, but there it is. And Born in East LA is a really funny film, especially now with all of our immigration discussion.
Yeah, right.
It's really timely now. But the idea is specifically about a guy played by Cheech Marin who's an American, but he's of Hispanic descent, who winds up getting caught on the other side of the border.
Yeah.
Deported effectively. They raid this factory and they just take him to be an illegal immigrant and deport him, and now he can't get back into the country of which he's a citizen. So it's the madcap, the lengths to which he goes to get back into the country. It's really a smart film. It's a very funny film. I'm glad it's been rediscovered. Collector's edition here with all those fun extras and that really, really good audio commentary. See it, especially with all of the stuff that's going on now in the political ether. This is so funny. It will lighten that whole situation. It'll make you feel okay about the world again.
Funny. Willard, the 2003.
Man, is that a creepy movie?
Creepy movie of a remake of a creepy movie.
Exactly. It's creepier remake. It's a creepier remake of a creepy movie.
Yeah. Which ended up was the sequel to the Ben, because it was Ben.
Yeah.
Willard.
And then
this remake here with Crispin Glover doing what he does best, being really creepy.
Yeah.
With that face, all kinds of. This is a new 2K scan. All kinds of neat featurette stuff on here, including an audio commentary with the director Glenn Morgan, and a few other folks. Audio commentary with the producers and James Wong and Crispin Glover, the late Arlie Ermey.
Yep.
I forgot that he was in this movie.
Yep.
Willard. Checking that out would be kind of cool. You have The Craft. This movie made a few actresses' careers. You have Neve Campbell and Robin Tunney and Rachel True and Fairuza Balk. It was the movie that sort of set off that whole little witch thing that happened, gave us the television series Charmed from back in the early 90s, and it is back. Anyway, neat movie this. All kinds of special features on here, including some audio commentaries and some deleted scenes with commentary tracks too. I remember this movie from 1975, Sarah T., Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic, a Richard Donner film. With Linda Blair, and Larry Hagman plays her father, and basically it's literally what it says it is. It's a movie about a teenage alcoholic, which was sort of daring.
Yeah,
in 1975 to make a movie to sort of deal with this topic in a fairly serious way. William Daniels in the film as well. Look, the new 2K scan interview with Linda Blair. Richard Donner directed the movie.
Yeah.
It's a very good movie.
And I've got 4 here that are all part of the Scream Factory, kind of a vintage line of B movies. The Vengeance of She. This is the original Captain Marvel, I guess, in a way. She's you have this young actress, Olenka Barova, who is haunted by voices telling her that she is Aisha. Right? Well, of course, we all know that now that some mysterious thing is reincarnation of some old ancient queen, and now she's gonna, everything's gonna go south, and it's gonna be ridiculous. And of course, look, this movie's silly beyond belief. It was rated G at the time. I don't know if I'd even rate it G now. I'd rate this like NC-17, just to keep people away from it. But it's so hysterically bad, and I kind of love it in a weird, guilty pleasure way. Tons of extras on here. There are new interviews with Terrence Clegg, the director, who at the time was an assistant director on this, as well as the special effects artist, Joy Clough, and Trevor Coop, who was the clapper loader.
Oh.
They tracked down the clapper loader.
Yeah.
And is he happy to be doing an audio commentary or what? So there's also a new commentary there's also a new commentary by the guys who do the Monster Party podcast, which is a whole lot of fun. It's a freaking hammer movie. The Deadly Mantis. It's a monster movie. It's about a giant praying mantis. That's all it is, and it's hilarious. It is absolutely hysterical. Directed by Nathan Duran in 1957, when all these kinds of movies were coming out. And this is a new 2K scan of the original elements. It looks great. And Tom Weaver and David Schechter do a fantastic commentary, and it includes the Mystery Science version of this, which is also hysterical. Boris Karloff in The Body Snatcher with Bela Lugosi. Kind of a minor film for both of them, but fans like it. They ham it up pretty well. And the most interesting thing about this is that it was directed by Robert Wise.
Oh.
He made The Body Snatcher. The man who would win 2 Academy Awards in the 60s. Back in the 40s made The Body Snatcher.
Yeah, right. But not actually, because Day the Earth Stood Still?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was in his wheelhouse.
True, and look, I mean, he segued into all this stuff after having been the editor on Citizen Kane. We forget that. He was a legit editor. So, yeah, I mean, it's okay. He's cutting his teeth and getting his chops together. And the last one, this is one of my all-time favorite B movies. It is so brilliant because the costumes are so fantastic. Virgil Vogel, the director Virgil Vogel's 1956 legendary The Mole People. The costumes are absolutely hilarious. The Mole People don't look anything like moles. It's like some weird costume somebody invented. Kind of looks mole-ish in some places, a little scaly, but Anyway, it's a bunch of mole. It's Creature from the Black Lagoon, except there's no lagoon and there's no creature. The mole people come up from the earth. It's swap the lagoon out for holes in the earth, and there you go. That's what it is. Anyway, it's quite a lot of fun, and it's just cheesy beyond all belief. And I just can't tell you how much fun and funny it is. I love the tagline on it: "From a lost age, horror crawls from the depths of the earth."
Wild, wild, wild. Man's Best Friend. There was a while there when they made all of these sort of like killer dog movies.
Yep.
Cujo was one of them.
Sure.
I think it was a Stephen King novel, something like that. This one was kind of neat. Man's Best Friend is about a guy, scientist, who artificially creates this dog, and the dog escapes and goes and lives with his family.
It's Cujo.
Family takes in the dog. Doesn't know the dog's gonna turn into a crazy killer dog. It's Cujo.
It's Cujo.
Special features. Lance Hendrickson is in the movie, though. I'm a big Lance fan.
Yeah, we love
it. From 2001, I had forgotten about this film, and some of the people in it: Denise Richards, Marley Shelton, Katherine Hagel, and Valentine, with David Boreanaz, before he would go on to play Angel on the series Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Cool.
So a lot of folks you haven't seen in a while. Man, I used to watch these people all the time. I used to see these people in movies all the time. They just all went away. Anyway, this is pretty neat. It's about a kid who asks a bunch of girls out on Valentine's Day. They won't go out with him, and he goes crazy a few years later and starts killing everybody. That's what it's about.
Sweet. All right, that's it for this week, and we will be back next week. All kinds of fun things happening in the in showbiz, and we're coming in. We keep talking about the Writers Guild and the agents, and we don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's going to change movies, whatever it is. Whatever agreement it is, it ain't going to be what it's been for the last 43 years. 1976 was the last one. This is a new one. It's going to be a new age coming soon. See you next week.